Welcome to the Spooky Isles. My name's David Saunderson. Over the last week or so, we've been talking to friends of the Spooky Isles and writers who contribute to the site regularly, just to see, one, how they're going during the coronavirus lockdown, and learn a little bit more about who they are and why they're interested in writing about spooky things. So today we're talking to Phil Davies. How are you, Phil?
Good morning. I'm good. As I say, bearing up under all the strain, as it were. So.
Yeah, and Phil lives in Shrewsbury. Pronouncing it right, because we've had discussions about
That's
whether
right.
it's Shrewsbury or Shrewsbury, so it's Shrewsbury. And Phil has been writing for us for a couple of years now, and he's been writing basically about Shropshire and surrounding areas. So what I really wanted to talk to you today about, Phil, was some of the things that you've learnt in the time that you've lived in Shrewsbury, and how it compares to maybe some other parts of England. I mean, it's not. I'm not going to say it's not a famous part, because obviously people who live in Shrewsbury, Shropshire, know it very well. But tell us a little bit about the area.
Yeah, certainly. Well, it's a medieval market town. So, as I say, it was formed on the banks of the River Severn, which is wonderful from one point of view, but as we find out with alarming regularity these days, not quite so wonderful in other regards. So a lot of history here. You've got, as I say, various famous people that live nearby. We've got serial killers. We've got ghosts. We've got all sorts here. As I say, the wonders of living in such an old place. So.
Okay, you say serial killers. I mean, I believe the castle near you has a ghost of a serial killer. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, Shrewsbury's only known so far. I mean, obviously there may be others that have a little bit more discreet, but yeah, Bloody Jack, his name was. So he was a warden in the Shrewsbury Castle, and what he did was kind of got to know, shall we say, various local ladies, and then offed them. And what ended up happening was one local lady happened to tell her sister what was going on, and her sister then was under no illusion as to probably what Jack was after, not imagining that he was actually thinking that he was after her sister's blood rather than her head. So what happened was she ends up going to the castle to try and track down Bloody Jack and stop him in his nefarious deeds, and finds out just quite how nefarious they really are. So sees her sister being dragged across the courtyard, goes back the next day with absolutely no trace of any of them. But in typical ghoulish serial killer kind of ways, she finds in a drawer all his trophies, which are all the various fingers and toes from the girls that he's offed in the past. So he then gets dragged off by the local militia, hung, drawn and quartered as they did in those days. And yes, his ghost now haunts Shrewsbury Castle. So and it's supposed to be that you can still hear him dragging his last victim across the courtyard outside. So.
That's a lovely story, really, isn't it? So
one for a Saturday morning, that one.
It is a Saturday morning, and you've written about that for the Spooky Isles. So we'll put the link in below in the description, how people can read more about Mad Jack Mitten.
That was Bloody Jack. That one.
Oh, Bloody Jack.
Yeah.
Mad Jack's another. There's lots of.
I was going to say, like, all
people.
sorts of local lunatics around here.
Okay, well, sorry, I mixed it up with another one that you've written about. Tell us about that one. Is that the Highwayman, or no? That was Kynaston.
Mad Jack Mitten is the local kind of. Well, it was a bit of everything. He was very much, I suppose, if he was roundabout, if he existed probably 100 years ago, you'd call him a bit of a cad and a bounder. He was very much a chap who was out for the good time. It's probably the best way of putting it. So he had inherited a lot of money from his father, inherited the estate, and then basically just enjoyed himself with it. So even down to things, we like to think of modern politics as being a little bit dodgy and a little bit corrupt. But you've got Mad Jack. Paid all the local people in Shrewsbury, I think it was £5 each or something like that, which, as they say, is a lot of money in those days. They all elected him into Parliament. He spent the morning there, got bored, and came home again. So yeah, it was very much for the moment, shall we say, with Mad Jack. But yeah, he was well known for his parties. One of his most famous antics, well, a couple of his most famous antics. One was riding a horse through the middle of a restaurant and jumping it over a table. There was another one, famous incident where he was suffering with hiccups, and so thought rather than doing the old hold the breath or drink a glass of water backwards, he set fire to his shirt tails. So as to whether it worked, I don't know, but it's not a cure I've heard of since then, put it that way.
Is your part of the world particularly attractive to people that are a bit crazy?
A bit nuts. I don't know. I suppose I suppose there is, being a country kind of area, there are probably more country characters than most, but it could also be that because the area isn't quite so dense, that those people who tend to be a little bit more out there get noticed a little bit more, perhaps. But no, I personally, I think there's probably more eccentricities round here than you'd find elsewhere, possibly.
Well, your own job in real life as opposed to writing, which obviously you have a great writing career. I believe you do writing for children's television as well.
Yes.
Go Setters amongst other ones. So you people could see your work on the television as besides.
Not quite so spooky, those ones. So everyone survives in Go Jetters. So,
but another aspect of your life is that you work as a funeral.
That's right, Funeral Celebrant. Yes.
Funeral Celebrant. Tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Well, the easiest way of describing it is kind of like a vicar without the dog collar. So what I'll do is try and reflect what the families want regarding a funeral. So if they want to have a little element of religion, something like a nod to God, then certainly more than happy to accommodate that. So if people want to go for something fully religious, then that's the remit of a vicar. If they want to go for something completely non-religious, then I'm more than happy to accommodate that, or there are other aspects you can go for. But yeah, it's very much, I would say, putting the person who we've kind of gathered to celebrate, putting them front and centre of the funeral ceremony.
How do you? I mean, we all have different things we do in our careers. It's Spooky Owls. I work in marketing and PR, where other people work in travel. They work in tour guiding. They do all sorts of things. So we can sort of balance what we do. Not everything is dark all the time for us, so therefore we get to enjoy our Spooky Owls because it is a separate to how do you balance working all day doing working at funerals and then it's coming back and doing some of your hobbies that includes producing sort of art based on HP Lovecraft, or which you'll show to us in a little bit, but how do you balance that up?
Well, I mean, obviously the Spooky Isles is a wonderful outlet because it allows you to kind of almost tap into slightly the darker side of human nature, but at the same time know that they are stories at the end of the day. So there's purely some element of truth in there and what have you, but like all good stories, they get embellished over time. So it's wonderful being able to kind of dig down. You find out so much about local history, local characters, that kind of thing. So alongside the kind of writing, I'm also a big reader. I'm a massive comic book geek. I'll hold my hand up for that, have been for years. So there's always those. There's regular texts. Big board gamer. I've probably got a good couple of hundred or so board games, so there's those to keep me entertained as well. And on the rare occasion I manage to sit still, there's usually something on Netflix I can catch up on as well. So.
Oh, okay. So it's not all darkness in your life. You do look for something that's
Oh yes,
bright.
Yes.
Brighter.
Yes.
Now, having said that, we were talking about before, and you were giving me a show around your room there. Would you maybe mind showing us some of those, some of the artwork that you've produced based on Lovecraft and other,
of course,
other things?
Certainly. First of all, I'll show you the books I've created. So these are started out as either just simple sheets of paper or a book I found in a charity shop or something like that. But I've always had a fascination with HP Lovecraft, the stories, the mythos, things like that. The character, the man, maybe not quite so much, but certainly what he created and what he brought to the horror genre and his kind of legacy. So is very much prevalent, I think, through modern culture. And so what I wanted to do was kind of create a set of his kind of forbidden tomes. If you read his work, you'll see it's all about kind of undiscovered grimoires and all sorts of forbidden texts and this kind of thing. So what I wanted to do was kind of create some as though they would be displayed in a museum. So so far I've made 10 of them, so ranging from famous texts that Lovecraft's created to some that I've invented myself. So one of the first ones I did was the Nefarious Necronomicon. So you can see that there, hopefully.
Yeah, it's a bit blurry, but we could see the book with the chains on it, and almost looks like human skin. Maybe you've tried to go for there.
That's it. Yeah, that was a chamois leather from one of the local car garages. I'm just going to shut the blinds, so hopefully it's not reflecting so much.
Yep. That's okay. Yep.
there we go. So let's see,
Yeah.
we can see that a bit clearer now. So.
Yep. No, that's great. You can still see it. It's fine. You can still see the reflection, but we get the idea. So that looks fantastic. So how long does something like that take to make?
Oh, crikey. Depends on what it is I'm making. So some of them, like the Necronomicon, took a little bit of time because it was a case of having to strip the cover off the old book, paint up the cover with various washes and things like this. Whereas other ones, I've got one here as well, which are based on The King in Yellow, which was not Lovecraft. That was, oh, crikey, I'm trying to think what the name of the chap is. Ambrose Pierce, I can't think. Anyway, it will come to me. But he based his story on the idea of a play that the first act was tediously boring, the second act sent you crackers. So this one was a little bit quicker and easier because it was literally just a case of getting some paper and kind of scribbling away over the top of it. So it really depends. I've been fortunate as well in the other books I've found which just look like an interesting book. It's very much about where they're set. So on the framing of them, so you can kind of make what might just be an ordinary, routine, standard-looking book look like something else entirely if you kind of set it accordingly. So
Do you take commissions on this, or is this something you've just been doing for yourself?
Just something I've been doing for myself, really. This is I've done them for a couple of years or so, things like that. So I've wondered possibly about displaying them or possibly selling them, but it's one of those things. I always wonder whether it's so niche, whether anyone would ever want them apart from myself. So
I don't know about that. I think they look really good on people's walls. So what are you doing to keep yourself busy at the moment? Because obviously we're all in lockdown, so I don't know how it works as far as funerals are concerned. Do you go out? Are there funerals at the moment?
Oh yes. I mean they're somewhat limited funerals at the moment. There's all the various restrictions on social distancing and things like that. But yes, funerals are still taking place. They're perhaps not quite the funerals how we would imagine them taking place even just a couple of months ago or what have you. But what we're trying to do is provide some form of ceremony for families, no matter how difficult it is at the moment. So yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy, but we're getting there.
Are people in the sort of? I mean, I'm thinking of what a funeral would look like. People sitting in aisles and stuff like them, on seats and stuff. Are people allowed to be within? Because I mean, you're not supposed to be within 2 meters of people.
No, you literally have 10 seats that are spaced out. So,
okay.
So you've got, as I say, one chair, and then there'll be a 2-meter circle around that chair and things like this. So,
okay.
So, yeah, it does look a bit stark. So.
Okay, that's all right. Well, anyway, you're doing well through this, though. It's a tense time, but you've got lots of things to keep yourself busy.
Oh, certainly.
Would love to get you back and maybe talk about some of your other experiences with ghosts and some of the strange history that is in Shropshire, because there seems to be a lot. This is just tipping off the surface, but I really appreciate talking today, Phil, and look forward to it. You and your family take care, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
Certainly. Thanks ever so much. Great to talk.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.